It started with a photo, just one. A group picture taken at a friend's birthday dinner. Laughter, music, warm light spilling across the table. I remember thinking how beautiful that night felt, how free, how for once I didn't notice who stared too long or whispered too softly until the next morning when my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. At first, I thought it was just tags or messages from friends. But the notifications kept multiplying. Strangers, comments, laughter wrapped in cruelty. Someone had posted that photo and cropped it, zoomed in, and written beneath it, "Some people should know which shades belong in the background." Her name was right there, Tara. She was the kind of girl people noticed when she walked in, confident, magnetic, untouchable in her own reflection. The world had always been kind to her. And maybe that's why she never learned what kindness costs. I stared at her post for a long time, reading the words again and again, trying to make them mean something else. They didn't. My face, my skin, my existence turned into her punchline. It wasn't just the insult. It was the echo. The way people joined in, adding laughing emojis, small jokes, and little cuts disguised as humor. I scrolled through them until my eyes blurred, until the screen felt heavy in my hands. There's a particular kind of silence that follows humiliation. It's not loud or dramatic. It's quiet, almost numb. You stop breathing for a moment, as if your body's trying to protect you from feeling everything at once. That morning, I didn't cry. I didn't respond. I just sat there, phone face down, watching sunlight spill through the curtains. I thought about deleting my accounts, disappearing, anything to stop the noise. But then something strange happened. By afternoon, her post was everywhere. Screenshots, retweets, stories. What she'd meant as a joke had spread like wildfire, and not everyone was laughing. People started calling her out. Influencers, classmates, even her colleagues. Comments shifted from laughter to anger. Disgusting. How can someone say this? Cancel her. Her beauty, her confidence, her curated perfection, all of it began to crumble under the same light she'd used to mock me. Still, I stayed quiet. Not because I was weak, but because I was tired. I didn't want to feed it. Didn't want to turn my pain into content. But the internet doesn't stop once it smells blood. By evening, she posted an apology. One of those rehearsed ones. I didn't mean it that way. I was joking. I'm learning. The usual script. But people weren't buying it. They dug up old tweets, old photos, old jokes. Her followers started leaving. Her sponsors pulled back. Her name, the same one that once shimmered under filters and likes, now sat under headlines. Tara Wilson under fire for colorist comments. By midnight, her account was gone, deleted, vanished. People said she couldn't handle the hate, that she'd shut everything down. Others whispered that her family had made her step away, that she was having a breakdown. But no one really knew. The internet moves on fast, faster than healing ever can. I remember sitting in my room that night, the glow of the phone lighting my face. Everyone kept sending me screenshots, saying things like, "You got your revenge. She got what she deserved," but it didn't feel like victory. It didn't feel like anything at all. Because here's what no one tells you about public apologies and online justice. They don't heal you. They don't undo the humiliation, the self-consciousness, the nights you spend staring at your reflection, wondering why something as simple as skin could offend someone so deeply. They just give you silence. And sometimes that silence feels emptier than the noise ever did. Days passed. People forgot. The story faded into the digital graveyard, where all scandals go to die. But something about her disappearance lingered. Not just online, physically. She stopped showing up anywhere. No new photos, no sightings. Her number went dead. Friends said she'd left town. Some said she'd gone abroad. Others whispered darker things, that she couldn't handle the fallout, that she'd done something irreversible. I didn't believe it at first. But then I got the letter. It arrived 2 weeks later. Plain envelope, no return address. Inside was a short note written in neat handwriting I recognized instantly. I thought I was better. I thought cruelty made me powerful. But the truth is I was just afraid. Afraid of not being enough without hurting someone else. "I'm sorry. You don't have to forgive me. Just know I see it now, what I did, who I became. There was no signature. Just a folded Polaroid, the same one from the birthday dinner, unedited this time. All of us are smiling. All of us are real." I stared at it for a long time, the air thick with something I couldn't name. Guilt? Pity? Relief? Maybe all of them. I kept thinking about that night, the way she laughed, the way I smiled back, not knowing she'd soon turn that moment into a weapon. And now here I was, holding the evidence of both her cruelty and her regret. That's the thing about the world, and it always balances itself eventually. Sometimes justice isn't loud. It doesn't come wrapped in headlines or hashtags. Sometimes it comes in whispers, in a letter that arrives too late to change anything, but just in time to remind you that every wound leaves a mark on both sides. I didn't post about it. Didn't tell anyone. Some stories aren't meant for an audience. They're meant for memory. I tucked the photo into my drawer under a stack of old journals, not as proof of what she did, but as proof that I survived. It because I did, and maybe that's the quietest form of revenge there is, with surviving. Beautifully in the same skin they tried to shame. I went out the next morning. The sun sharp and gold. People stared, but not the same way they used to. Maybe they saw something different now. Not the color of my skin, but the calm in my walk. That's the part no one talks about. How peace looks good on people who've been through hell. And as I walked past the mirror in the shop window, I caught my reflection. For the first time, I didn't flinch, didn't look away. The world had tried to turn my skin into a target, but I had turned it into armor. For weeks, I tried to forget her. I told myself I didn't care where she went or what happened to her. I tried to believe I'd moved on, that she was just a lesson, not a wound. But some stories don't close neatly. They keep bleeding under the surface, waiting for you to touch the scar. It was a cold morning when I saw her name again. Not online this time, on paper. The local news tucked inside a small column near the bottom of the page. Tara Wilson, found unconscious at abandoned studio apartment, in recovery. I froze, the world narrowing to that one sentence. I read it again, slower. It didn't say much else, just that she had been found alone, malnourished, dehydrated. No one knew how long she'd been there. Her neighbor had reported strange noises, and when the police broke in, she was barely breathing. It didn't sound like the girl I remembered, the one with laughter too loud, skin always glowing, words sharp enough to slice through anyone weaker. But maybe that was the point. Some people break quietly. Others, like her, collapse under the weight of their own reflection. For a long moment, I just stood there, newspaper trembling slightly in my hand. Then I folded it, slid it into my bag, and walked out the door without really knowing where I was going. The hospital was 20 minutes away. I told myself I was just curious, that I wanted closure. But deep down, I think I wanted to see for myself what cruelty looks like when it runs out of audience. The nurse at the front desk looked at me carefully when I asked. "You're her friend?" She said. "I was," I replied quietly. She nodded toward the end of the corridor. "Room 306, she's awake." The hall smelled like disinfectant and sleep. Machines hummed softly behind closed doors. And then there she was, lying in bed, thin and pale, her hair a tangled mess of golden brown. Her eyes were open, staring at the ceiling as if afraid to meet her own thoughts. For a moment I didn't move. I almost turned away, but then she saw me. Her lips parted just slightly as if she couldn't believe I was real. "You came," she whispered. "I don't know why," I said honestly. She tried to smile, but it faltered halfway. "Maybe you wanted to see if I was still alive." Maybe. Silence settled between us, not the kind that's peaceful, but the kind that holds too much history to fill. Finally, she said, "You hate me." I didn't answer right away. I looked at her instead. The hospital bracelet around her wrist, the faint bruise near her temple, the hollowness in her face. This wasn't the same woman who mocked me online. This was someone stripped down to her bones, to the softest part of being human, regret. "I don't hate you," I said quietly. "I just stopped thinking about you." That hurt her more than hatred would have. I saw it in her eyes, that flicker of pain, the realization that she wasn't even worthy of being hated anymore. She swallowed hard. I thought I could handle the fallout. I told myself people would forget. They always do. Her voice cracked a little, but they didn't. My job dropped me. My friends vanished. My parents wouldn't even pick up the phone, and I couldn't go outside without someone recognizing me. Her hand trembled as she reached for the glass of water beside her. "You know what the worst part was? It wasn't losing followers. It was realizing I didn't have a single person who actually cared whether I was okay. I stayed quiet. She took a breath, shallow and slow. That night at the restaurant, I didn't even mean it like that. I thought it was funny. I thought people would laugh, and they did. But then it went further. I didn't stop it. I liked the attention. I liked being noticed, even for the wrong reasons. Tears slid down the side of her face. And then I saw you. The way you didn't respond, didn't post, didn't fight back. That silence, it was louder than anything I'd ever said. It made me see myself for what I was. Her voice broke. I ruined my life over a joke. I didn't say, no, you ruined mine first. I didn't need to. She already knew. For a long while we just sat there. The hum of the machines filled the gaps between us. Finally I said, you sent me a letter. She nodded faintly. I didn't think you'd read it. I did. Her eyes softened, almost like relief. I meant every word. I looked at her, this girl who had once been all glitter and sharpness, now fragile and quiet. People like to believe karma is loud, I said, but it's not. It's quiet. It just waits. And when it comes, it doesn't shout and it whispers. She nodded, eyes glossy. It whispered too late for me. I wanted to say something comforting, but I couldn't lie. Sometimes you don't get redemption. Sometimes you just live with the wreckage you built. When I left her room, she called after me. Will you ever forgive me? I paused at the doorway. I already did, I said. But that doesn't mean I'll forget. She closed her eyes and I walked away. Outside, the world felt heavier, not with anger, but with understanding. I'd always imagined forgiveness as something pure, light, almost holy. But standing there under the grey sky, I realized it wasn't about absolving her. It was about freeing myself. Over the next few weeks, I visited her a few times. We didn't talk much about the past anymore. Sometimes she just asked about ordinary things, the weather, the news, my job. Once, she told me she was planning to move back in with her aunt after recovery, start over somewhere small. No internet, no fame. And maybe she did, because one day she was just gone, discharged, no note this time. No goodbye. Just gone. The same way she'd disappeared from the internet. But the strangest thing was, I didn't feel unfinished. Some part of me had been waiting for that, for her to leave my story. That night I walked home slowly. The city lights flickered across the pavement, and for the first time in months I felt something close to peace. I thought about how strange it was that the same person who once made me ashamed of my skin had ended up teaching me to love it more fiercely. Her cruelty had forced me to look at myself. Really look, not through filters or fears, but through truth. My skin wasn't something to apologize for. It was history, lineage, resilience. It had survived every generation before me, and it had survived her. In some twisted way, maybe that was her final gift, unintentional but real. Months passed. Life steadied. I found new work, new friends, a new rhythm. Sometimes when I saw photos from that old night, the birthday dinner, I didn't feel bitterness anymore, just distance. Then one evening, while cleaning my bookshelf, I found the Polaroid she'd sent me, the same one I'd tucked away months ago. Everyone in that picture was smiling, me, her, the others. I looked at our faces and realized something. The light that night wasn't coming from the restaurant or the candles. It was us, real, raw, imperfect, and no filter, no cruel joke, no viral post could ever take that away. I slid the photo back into my journal and closed it. Some people spend their lives trying to erase the parts of themselves others call flaws. I used to be one of them. But now when I look in the mirror, I see something different. The kind of strength that doesn't shout, doesn't sparkle. It just endures. Maybe that's what healing really is. Not forgetting. Not forgiving too easily, but living and fully, proudly in the same skin the world tried to make you hate. That night, before bed, I opened my window. The city hum drifted in. Cars, laughter, life moving on. Somewhere out there, maybe she was hearing the same sounds, breathing the same air, trying to start again. And I hoped, quietly, honestly, that she did. Because this world is already cruel enough. We don't need to stay that way. I turned off the light and lay down, the moonlight brushing my face, my skin, my story, glowing softly in the dark. There's a strange silence that comes after pain, not the peaceful kind, but the kind that forces you to listen. It's in that silence you start to hear yourself again. The version of you that got buried under years of trying to be accepted. The voice that learned to whisper just to stay safe. For a long time I thought healing meant forgetting, that if I stopped thinking about her, about the way she laughed while I felt small, I'd finally move on. But healing isn't forgetting. It's remembering without bleeding. It's walking past the same mirror that once made you flinch and seeing something whole staring back. Sometimes I still think about her. Not the girl in the hospital, but the one before all that. The one who mocked me online and thought cruelty was confidence. I wonder if she ever looks back at her old photos, her old words, and feels that ache of shame that lingers after the applause fades. Maybe she does. Maybe she doesn't. Either way, it doesn't matter anymore, because somewhere between the noise and the silence, I realized I don't need revenge. I don't even need an apology. What I needed was peace, and I gave it to myself. That's the thing no one tells you about power. It doesn't always look like winning. Sometimes it's just surviving without bitterness. Standing tall in your own truth, when the world tried to make you hide it. My grandmother used to say, your skin remembers the sun before it remembers the pain. I never understood that until now. Every shade of brown, gold, and dusk on my body carries something ancient. Not shame, but endurance. Every insult thrown at it only proved how bright it was in a world that tried to dim it. And now when I step outside, I don't cover up the way I used to. I don't check the lighting before someone takes a picture. I don't filter the warmth from my face. My reflection is finally mine again, unedited, unapologetic. But I won't lie. It took time. It took crying over things that didn't deserve my tears. It took relearning how to breathe in a world that wanted to suffocate difference. It took standing in rooms full of people who smiled with their mouths and judged with their eyes, and realizing their discomfort wasn't my responsibility. That's what she never understood. The world taught her that power was humiliation, that beauty meant control. But power, real power, is grace under fire, and grace doesn't post about its victories. It just keeps living. I remember walking past a group of girls a few months after everything happened. One of them whispered my name. The other one said, "That's her, the one from the post." I braced myself for the familiar sting, but instead she added softly, "She's so pretty in real life." It was small, barely audible, but it healed something in me. Not because I needed validation, but because it reminded me that kindness still existed. That even after cruelty, the world could shift even slightly toward compassion. Maybe that's what all of this was about. Not punishment, not karma, but reflection. For her, for me, for everyone who watched and learned what words can do when they're used like weapons. There's a difference between destroying someone and holding them accountable. The world destroyed her. I just chose to stop holding her up. And that's what I'd tell anyone who's ever been mocked for something they never chose. Your skin, your shape, your name, your silence. Don't let them make you their mirror. Their reflection is not your truth. The next time you're tempted to shrink, to hide, to apologize for existing too loudly, don't. Remember, your presence makes small people uncomfortable because it exposes what they lack: depth. Some people crumble when faced with their own emptiness. Let them. That's not your burden to carry. The day I let go of her, truly let go, I understood something powerful. You can forgive someone without ever letting them back into your story. You can wish them healing from a distance while still protecting your peace. Because forgiveness isn't about erasing the past. It's about reclaiming the future. I used to think her disappearance was poetic justice. But maybe it was something else, a mirror for all of us. To see what happens when cruelty becomes a habit, when shame becomes a brand. I'll never know what her life looks like now. I don't need to. Maybe she's somewhere quiet, learning softness. Maybe she's still running. But either way, I hope she finds what I did. Not redemption, but understanding. Because that's what this whole story has been about. Understanding that the same fire that burns you can also forge you. That words can wound, yes, but they can also rebuild. And that no matter how many times someone tries to make you small, you can still stand up. Taller, brighter, unbroken. I've learned to stop chasing closure. Sometimes it comes quietly, like sunlight through blinds, reminding you that the world is still moving. And so are you. And when people ask me now, whatever happened to her? I just smile and say, I hope she found herself, because I already found myself. When I tell this story now, people always ask the same question. If you could go back, would you change anything? For a long time, I thought I would. I thought I'd speak up sooner, defend myself, fight back harder. But now, standing here years later, I realize I wouldn't change a thing. Because every moment of silence, every tear I swallowed, every insult that stuck to my skin, taught me something I could never have learned through comfort. It taught me that dignity is louder than revenge. That peace is more permanent than victory, that some storms only exist to clean the air. When I walk through the city now, I notice faces, all kinds. Some glow under the sun, some reflect it softly. And I think about how strange it is that the world ever decided one shade was better than another. Color is nothing but light's memory after all, and light belongs to everyone. Sometimes I pass by the cafe where it all began, the place where that photo was taken. The staff still recognizes me. They smile, offer me my usual order, and every time I sit by the window, I feel the warmth of that memory. Not the pain, just the proof that I lived through it. It's strange how life circles back like that. How you end up finding beauty in the same places that once broke you. I've learned that forgiveness isn't a single moment. It's a choice you make every morning. It's looking at the world and deciding to see more than cruelty. It's letting your scars breathe, letting them remind you, not of what hurt, but of what healed. There's a quiet kind of power in that, the kind you don't show off, the kind that doesn't need applause. It lives in your posture, in your calm, in the way you no longer flinch when someone looks too long. I don't post about her anymore. I don't check if her name still circles the internet. Maybe she's disappeared completely. Maybe she's changed. I like to think she has, because if pain can turn me into someone stronger, maybe guilt turned her into someone softer. The truth is, we're all capable of cruelty, but we're also capable of redemption. Some people just have to lose themselves to realize what they were becoming. And maybe in her silence, she's still learning. Maybe in mine, I've already learned enough. When the world mocked my skin, I thought it was the end of something. My confidence, my belonging, my worth. But it wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a different story. One where I didn't wait for anyone else to tell me I was enough. Now when people compliment my skin, call it beautiful, glowing, radiant, I smile, but not for the reason they think. I smile because I remember when it wasn't admiration I heard, but ridicule. And yet, here I am, still standing in the same light that once burned me. That's the real ending. Not her disappearance, not the letter, not the justice that people think I got. The real ending is peace, because peace is something no one can take from you. Not with words, not with cruelty, not with hate. If you've ever been made to feel small, to feel like your existence was something to apologize for, remember this: the world doesn't get to decide your worth. You do, and one day the same people who laughed will fall silent, because nothing humbles cruelty like the sight of the person it tried to break, still standing, shining. So if you're listening to this, and someone once made you feel less, walk outside tomorrow. Let the light touch your skin. Don't hide from it, because that light, it's yours, and that's the story.